At the end of the day, you want to sit down and go, I showed the world how much I love them. And I did it through my actions and my words and my presence. Presence matters.
I think that's the medicine for what we're going through in this crazy world is love, and in all its forms and all its extensions. First snow of the year. Looks like a good day to do a podcast. So welcome to the Just Be Cause podcast. I'll be your guide, Shore. And today I'm bringing you a spiritual warrior, a brother of mine who I've seen navigate the most challenging times and find deep meaning in it. And from that meaning, he shares this essence of love and caring that is beyond. This guy's been there with me in the trenches and through some tough times, and he's been a brother beyond brothers. And that's where you really get to know somebody who's in those times. And on this show, I want to bring to you people that are really doing the work, that are deeply in it. I believe the evolution that we're all going through in our consciousness is a lot of the people who will navigate us and guide us through that are ones you don't know about. And so I hope you enjoy learning and playing with Mike and I on this program, and wait till the end because the last piece he shares is so powerful. So we're so glad you joined us. We'll also bring you incredible people that you do know. So we hope that you get the most out of this. And on this program and in our work, love is our algorithm. So spread the love, become part of this, subscribe, share, like, but also remember to be love in your life with all its many forms. We're glad you're here. Enjoy the show. Mike Man, I am so stoked to have you on the Just Because podcast. And so I did a little intro earlier, but one of my dearest brothers, and I'll just say this like face to face with you, is just the journey that we have been on has been mystical, magical, crazy, painful, every kind of feeling I feel like I've got to share with you. And I really mean share, not like, it's not like been a one-way thing. I've learned so much from you, and felt more than anything like I've had maybe soul family and this deep walk with a brother. And one of the things I love about you is that you're just always been so freaking real, and there's like no apologizing for that. And the best thing is you pulled me aside many times and just like, dude, you need to look at this. Come on, let's dive deep. And you've just been a huge part of my journey, my beloved's journey, my family's journey. And I feel as close to your family as well, like in this whole thing, because I feel like it was a whole package. And yeah, dude. So I'm going to try not to tear up here because, but one of the things I want these conversations to be about on the podcast, and we're going to do many things, but it's all sort of bringing up the collective journey that we're all on. And there's one of the pieces is there's a handful of people in my life, and not many, that I can do this with. And You're one of them, and always have been. And I felt like I said before we got on, we've had this sort of deep, sort of beyond words connection as well that has been very, let's say, soothing, and like I can rest in your energy, and from the very beginning of our crazy meeting and relationship, like I felt like you had my back no matter what. And, I've tried to reciprocate that in every way I can. And so I just stoked. But one of the things I want to just share is this conversation was sparked off one of your Facebook post. So I'll just stop there and just say, is there anything you want to say to like kick us off on our deep dialogue, our deep conversation here, before we get started? Or I can just sort of dive in and start asking questions. It's up to you.
Well, I'll just say maybe one thing. Um, I'm super grateful for you, brother. I have learned so much from you. Th- Partially, of course, through the observation of you and your journey. And then the other part being, watching you and having my own senses of, judgment, discernment, and all of these other things that occurred in our relationship, both mine, yours, your beloved's, everything. And one of the things that I love about you and us is that we can see the surface and we can see the deeper, and I'm ecstatic that you always let me play with you in the deeper, and that we can move past the surface. And I'm really excited to be here with you today. And just now is the first time I heard you mention the name of the podcast, the Just Because. I love that.
Oh,
It's so cool.
Here, let's throw a logo up for everybody to see, because we might want to have that on there. So that's
Just Because. Nice.
yeah. And you got to see our here's our not that one. Let's go with there's our TM
Oh,
tagline. And so I'm gonna leave that below you for a second because it just looks good underneath you, and because you are all about love, brother. No, I'll take that off. But you are pure love, baby. So
yeah.
that's it. I think that's the medicine for what we're going through in this crazy world is love, and in all its forms and all its extensions. And it gets really easy, and we've done this. You and I have been in this boat where we focused on the world falling apart, and how all the craziness and how upset and much we were judging it. And I think that, of course, happens because we live in a crazy world and we're human. And I think I've noticed in you, especially the last couple years, but even more so in the last year, 6 months, you're letting go of a lot of whatever it looks like out there, and we'll talk about that. I'll read something from your post, but tell me how you're navigating this world from your perspective on your journey, and how it's maybe changed along the way. I know there's milestones and everything else, but maybe you could just start with that.
Sure. So I've always navigated. I use probably different terminology. So, but I've always navigated my reality based on what feels right. In human design terms, I'm a 2-4 manifesting generator with an emotional authority. Before I even knew what that meant, I've always let my emotions kind of rule me. If you want to use that term, something that most people think is bad. But once you understand the blessing that are the things that constitute your human incarnation, then those things are the blessing. They're not the curse.
Right.
So for me, I navigate through emotional awareness, how things feel. And in the past, I was really big on goal setting and achievement and things that were tangible in this 3D realm. But in the last, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years, I've had surrendered a lot of that. And I kept asking, praying, if you will, God, give me more opportunities to grow and be stronger, and to continue to serve. And not serve in some sort of placated way, but like whatever service looks like for the day. Maybe service is picking up the frog off the road. And it doesn't have to be some sort of Gandhi-esque mission where I'm changing lives and saving the oceans. No, that doesn't mean that that's not it.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that that's it. So my current navigation is through continual surrender. And then in the last year, as you know, my wife got sick last September, and then she died in March, and man, that was hard, I'll tell you. You really want to be tested to see how much you can surrender.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you
Well,
you get an opportunity.
and let me just say, just take a pause, because your relationship with Crystal, it is, I will just say, still is, like, it's such been a profound and deep journey on many levels, and you guys have definitely been, you know, you gave each other a lot of opportunity to grow in so many ways. Like, seeing the depths of what you guys move through in your life and all the things, not just with you two as a intimate, but with your family, with your daughter, with your mom, with everybody. It's been
Yeah.
amazing. And um so dude, and then shortly after, your father passed away. And so you had,
Yeah.
like within weeks of
Mhm.
that, and it was like, just, oh, and then just the depths of like feeling that and feeling you, and then also getting some of the reflections on how you navigate it. Just amazing too. It's like I can feel your heart, and I can feel the mourning and the grief, but I can also feel the release and the surrender. And yeah, maybe you could just share about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So I I started studying consciousness and my own psyche and spirituality over 20 years ago. And I don't know why I became so, well, I know why I became so infatuated with it. It's because it's my design. It's who I am.
Yeah.
It's my mission, if you want to use that term. I believe that all of those things were in, like Wayne Dyer's book. I can see clearly now. He goes through and puts in linear form everything that occurred in his life and how it resulted in some other thing.
Mm.
And I remember when I read that book and I was telling my wife about it and I was telling other people about it, I'm like, this is the book. It explains how I see
Yeah.
life
Right.
and how I see time. And unless you can see it, it's hard to explain it. And that's been everything that led up to, her passing and my father's passing, or my dad, technically. My father had died years before that.
Mm.
But, you know, equally important, my stepdad raised me.
Yeah.
My point in all that is to say that there is a level of surrender that is possible that almost feels guilty. And that was a bit of my challenge when
Mm.
Crystal passed. Was I knew she was going to pass long before she even got sick,
Yeah.
because I can feel
Mm-hmm.
things, and I have a knowing, an intuitive, if you want to use that term, knowing. And when it came to pass, when she was sitting when we were sitting in the doctor's office and they said she was terminal, it wasn't a shock, you know, and I was quasi prepared for it, but even as prepared as you can get, yeah,
Yeah.
it still sucks.
Dude. Uh, and you
It's
guys,
still
you guys didn't even get to be at home. You went down to Texas for the best treatment, and you were living in a crazy environment, and it just, and the I know your service when you're serving someone, like, because I've been on the receiving end, and like the level of that you can hold is incredible. And so just knowing, as you navigated that, what level you were outputting to take care of her, your family, your daughter at the same time, is pretty full on. And then anybody who's gone through that kind of journey on any level knows that there's really no words for it. And it's different for all of us, but the grace that you guys navigated that with, and I know the growth even in that came for both of you, was pretty amazing, even though you kept it very concealed for most of the time. Yeah. So dude, yeah, it does suck. And the surrender, right? Like, you got tested at the highest level of surrender.
Oh yeah, you get to really truly see if what you believe, you truly believe it,
Right. Right.
because there are many people who have their faith in God tested during times of calamity, and they are like, where is God now? And
Mm.
and some of them have this viewpoint that, only the good things that happen are divinely orchestrated, and I don't see it that way. I see that everything is divinely orchestrated. So how can I be frustrated or upset with something that was
Mm.
not only inevitable, but part of a greater plan? And if I was to do that, I when I sat in it, and I realized, what is loss, what is my grief,
Mm.
where is this coming from?
Mm.
And I had gone through and done so much surrender work,
Mm.
and this was obviously the hardest work in surrender for me. I mean, I'm certain there'll be more. There's always more, but it was surrendering to want things to be different than they are,
Yeah.
you know? And I wanted them to be different than they were. I didn't want my wife to be sick. I didn't want her to die. I didn't want any of these things. But when you surrender to them being, and you accept them for what they are, and you're allowing them to permeate your entire existence, then you have even more growth. So, like you said, sharing, I've shared more since her passing. Um, I had these feelings prior to her passing,
Mm-hmm.
most of them, but she didn't really like me sharing that portion of myself.
Yeah.
And I think that is a big part of uh, why God orchestrated this into my existence.
Yeah.
Because if she was alive, I would have never shared anything that I'm sharing now. I
Right.
wouldn't have done it out
Yeah.
of honor and respect for her wishes,
Yep. Yep.
which is really hard to come to terms with, and probably hard for people to even hear. But
Well, I
but I
mean,
actually do believe.
but this is the real rub right here, right? This is like where like how many of us, and because we've set up our life in such a way that we have these barriers or walls or blocks or rules or expectations that, like, we're living in a certain way that doesn't feel authentic, right?
Mm, mm,
So so and I love that you can see the divine plan in this, right? Like that it's given you a chance to actually step into more of the authenticity and person you are without now the blocks or restrictions. And
yeah.
and it's like, what a gift. And that whole journey of like wanting it to be different, and that's where the suffering comes from, or that's where the pain comes from. And the surrender into, like, well, who am I to say how it's supposed to be or what it's supposed to look like? Or like, how can I be in it without being attached to what it looks like, is a very interesting journey. And man, get tested on every level with that, with your beloved, right? So, wow, dude. So let's go back and talk about guilt for a little bit, because you mentioned
Sure.
that word. And
Hmm.
there's you and I both studied Course in Miracles a little bit, and
Hmm.
and it it really alludes to the idea that the guilt of the original separation that happened from
Hmm.
creator to this illusion that we're in, to this Maya, to this whatever, that
Hmm.
is the guilt that sort of still lingers, and we're here to work on releasing that and surrendering that that's not even real actually. But we hold
Yeah.
it because we want to blame God or somebody else for this separation or the seeming difference. And I feel like this is my intuition, is I feel like that these experiences over the last year for you have even brought you closer to understanding there is no separation. There is no,
Yeah.
there's no space. And that's an intellectual conversation that a lot of people have all the time. But when you actually are living it, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, was to talk about. So how, like, do you still feel the guilt on some level, and how do you navigate that, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. The the real answer is, I don't think any of us who are alive today that we know are capable of elimination of all guilt. Um,
Right.
I think if we were, we would be. be Christ,
Yeah.
because when we're able to eliminate that guilt, we can eliminate all separation, because the guilt is, a
Yeah.
big piece of the separation.
Yeah.
So do I feel guilt? Yes. Do I feel it as an overriding current? No. Do I feel that it's there, and does it still sometimes, you know, enter as a dominant thought pattern? Sometimes, yeah. But um, it is far. The more I practice acceptance, the less guilt I have, because the guilt is rejection, right? And I mean, it's literally just rejection. I reject that thing, so therefore I'm going to feel a specific way about it, right? What I can say is that guilt does show up. And when it does, I remind myself that that thing, whatever the guilt incarnation is, or the expression for the de jour, if you will,
Yeah.
is perfect,
Yeah.
right? And I have to sit in that perfection, and just kind of roll around in it. And it could be something as simple as guilt around not spending more time with my daughter, or it could be something as, complex as not feeling guilty at what's happening globally
Right.
to the planet and to other people. But I don't feel that. I don't feel that guilt. And that doesn't make me a bad person. It just means that I don't feel guilt for it, because it is not something for me to necessarily feel guilty about. I observe,
Yeah.
right? I've always been an observer, and I think that that's kind of the benefit of growing up just insanely unattractive in society, and
You unattractive dude.
inarticulate.
Okay, hold on. I got a picture to just I got a picture just to share, because you are so attractive, and this is proof right here.
I love that picture, my
Dude.
baby. Um,
I know
no,
that
when
that's
I
your
was
beautiful daughter, but dude, first of all, I get it. I get what you're saying, but like when the first time I met you, I remember you getting out of your massive rig that you were driving at the time. This Black Betty is what we called her. It's beautiful, big black Dodge Ram.
my one time,
Yeah, it
yeah.
was a big ass car, and you were in Oregon, and you were at my little cabin we were staying at the time, and you got out, and you dropped out of that thing which had been lifted, and you walked up, and you were a little smaller in stature, than I had expected from what I'd heard. I had built up this thing, but your smile, dude, was like 12 feet tall, and so like telling you, your beauty is so radiant to me, and I think it's like very contagious, like with the piece of seeing what's going on in the world right now, like you're talking about.
Mhm, mhm,
And like there's a part, like I think you allude to it, where you can feel guilty for not feeling guilty.
mhm,
Right, like,
mhm,
oh, I should be down in the, like, could you look at the world and actually not see anything wrong, like, and that's kind of what in your piece that you wrote, it's like the comparison part. It's that you wrote in Facebook, it started with me wanting to be a better person, focused heavily on my own growth and personal development, always asking, how can I do better? How can I be a better father, husband, and human? At some point I realized in order to be better, there had to be a less better. And when I read that, I was like, okay, we got to talk, because that is also the world, right? Like in order for this world to be evolved and healed and better and heaven on earth, then there has to be a less better world. And maybe that's true in one realm, on one plane of existence, where because I'm not immune from it. It feels heavy, it feels intense, it feels full on sometimes. But
mhm.
how much am I going to dwell in that? And then how much am I going to dwell in this is all perfect? And but you write this little, I'm going to call it a manifesto. For you say, so for those of you who wonder what happened to Mike for so long, here's the truth. I quit caring long before my wife passed. Life just is, capital IS, for me. I don't care to save the planet. I don't care to save anyone. I don't care to be your hero, and I don't want to be saved. I don't want a money focus. I don't want more spirituality. So I'm going to pause there because I love, this was the second part that got me, was like, oh, dude's getting real now. Like, okay, here we go. You know, like, it's like so many of us have chased that stuff, and on any level, whether it's a, you know, a higher spiritual consciousness, or and we get like this spiritual arrogance, or we're looking for it in the next tool or the next guru or the next whatever. And I don't think there's anything really wrong with that, but I think that there's a point where I got kind of exhausted on the journey. And then a lot of life happened. You know, we lost our nephew at 19.
Mm-hmm.
And there seems to be a lot of people that are making transitions that we really cared about in a very short amount of time. And it was like, okay. And that's why this podcast is called Just Because. And then the first two pieces of that are just be.
Yeah.
And then once you're just being, then you can be cause. But real cause, like from a place of being. And like you said, it's informed maybe in that moment to moment, about what you're going to do, and like letting go of the plans. And then here's how you finished it. So you said all the things you didn't want, which are like, love you, Mike, you're awesome. And then you said, I do, capital I do, love you and everyone. I do see my disasters as perfect. I do see your disasters as perfect. I do have faith and love in myself and God. I do know my next partner is here. I want to talk about that later, maybe another podcast. I do move with the signals of the universe, which I've always known you to do, but I feel like this deeper, like, watch out. Now we're fully tuning in. Like we've got the radio dial now right on the station instead of just hearing like in and out. I do surrender every day. I truly love you all, and I can't explain how this is or how it feels in words. And that was that part right there. So just thank you for that.
Yeah, man. It's a very interesting place to be.
Mm.
I used to care about so much stuff, you know?
Mm.
I mean, not just material things, but just in general.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to describe it. I just don't. It's not that people think that a lack of caring is a lack of compassion, a lack of empathy, but it's not. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
When you care so much and you know that whatever you are experiencing or whatever someone else is experiencing is an absolutely perfect event orchestrated for them by the Almighty, then why would you care one way or the other? It just is like, okay, awesome. I mean, like, if anything, I don't, this sounds macabre, but you know, you can actually get excited by the chaos and be like, oh, look at that. That's going to go down. Oh, that's horrible. But that's going to result in this beauty.
Dude, there's a part of me that is like, good, we're close. Like, we are so close to this collective pop in our way of being, I feel. And the way I could tell we're close is because the birthing pains are getting closer and closer together, right? Like, it's like we're birthing this, and whatever can't be in this new thing that's being revealed is being shown, like full view. Like, it's like, so there's a part of me that's like, oh, this is like actually awesome. And there's this great line by, I think, Sandra Walter. She says, care, but don't carry. And
well said.
Yeah. There's that story of the Buddha, the two monks that are walking, and they get to the river, and they're Buddhist monks. And there's a woman who's trying to cross a river with a heavy load, and one of the monks runs into the river and grabs her and carries her across and puts her on the other side. And the other monk is horrified because you're not in their vow of chastity. They're not supposed to touch a woman or, and 5 miles into the walk, the other monk says, how could you dare carry that woman across the river and break your vows? He's like, oh, I let that go back at the river. You've been carrying that for 5 miles, and it's like, you know what I mean? We carry the way it should be. And like on all levels, we're talking from your wife to this world. How much can you actually surrender to what is?
Yeah, man. And when you, I think the word carry is the proper word, because well, carry and transmute or transform, because I've I've come across a lot of people who are very, very upset at the state of the world.
Mm.
Um, but I don't, it's not that I don't see the way that things are, but in truth, it's that I don't see them the way that they are, right? So I, I will get asked, hey, did you hear about X, or what do you think about Y? And people will ask me. And I find that um, there are a few different classifications of people, right? So there's a lot of folks who are on their spiritual journey who are wrapped up in the ego identity of a spiritualist.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of affirmation that can come in picking up a shield and a sword and fighting a spiritual battle that is at play. Um,
Yep.
but for me, I found that to be another ego wrapper that I had to peel away and go, no, you're not here to save anybody. I think David Hawkins did a good service to the world when he talked about the ladder, the Hawkins scale.
Yeah. Which is, for everybody hasn't not familiar, it's a scale of 0 to 1,000, basically a consciousness scale, and anything below 200 is moving out of fear and it's life taking, and anything above 200, which I think the cutoff line is pride. Is that right? Or courage?
I think pride's 180, and I think courage is just at 200.
Yeah,
I don't remember it.
I think the 200
verbatim.
is courage. Yeah, and it goes up, through the different octaves of emotions and everything else in consciousness to 1,000. 1,000 being the perfect conscious, like a Christ consciousness. So
Exactly. And I think if we were to look at that scale and kind of embody what it might mean, if we stop looking at things as absolutely truthful or not truthful, and we start looking at the core intention behind it, you can find these patterns that exist in everything. And that's what I've been doing for decades. And the pattern that I observed in Hawkins' work, and I'm attempting to internalize as much as I can now, is if I just exist on this planet and I am able to simply be one of those that resonate over a threshold, the counterbalancing of the negativity that exists on the planet is exponential. So I don't need to go and fight that war or protest or put, if we are going to use, I think Vladim is the guy's name that wrote Transurfing Reality. If you want to feed a pendulum, you're going to feed it.
Yeah.
The question becomes, do you want to feed something that has a polarization effect and more anchoring in duality, or do you choose not to feed the pendulum through emotional response and instead observe and not feed?
Yeah.
Someone asked me yesterday, I was talking with someone and I said, well, she said, what about this? And I said, well, that is a pendulum, and you're well within your rights to fight, and you're well within your rights to do whatever you want. It's your reality. She said, well, what do you do? What do you think? And I'm like, well, I don't really want to feed any pendulums anymore. And she said, can you explain it in brief? And I'm like, well, it's like the story of the two wolves, right? Except whether you feed the good wolf or the bad wolf, you lose. either wolf's going to kill you.
I like the spin.
Like,
That's a great spin on the story. We need
they're
to update the
just
story, right?
wolves.
Yeah, yeah. They're both wolves, right? Dude, a wolf is
Yeah.
a wolf. Sorry. Why
And,
they
and I
why
know
they
that
why
people
they
would hear
call it a
that.
wolf in sheep's clothing, right? Like,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So why would you want to feed a wolf? Why
yeah.
why not just not feed them any longer? And I never truly understood Buddhist principles um until recently,
Mm,
until my wife died. I
yeah,
mean, I understood them mentally.
yeah.
I didn't internalize them and integrate them until recently.
Mm. So when you say the deeper understanding of it through your wife passing, what would be the Buddhist energy or idea? You don't need to put it in their terms, but whatever my terms are, that would reflect that knowing now.
In my terms,
Yeah, Mike terms. That's what we want, man. That's why you're here.
yeah, in my terms, it's just screw it. Why,
Nice.
why are you trying so hard to
Yeah.
be something
Mm,
when you're already perfect?
mm,
You're perfect just as you are.
yeah.
You know, all of these events that take place for you are perfect, whether they're good or bad. Follow Viktor Frankl, follow Buddhist teachings, follow any guru that you prefer. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You're
Right.
perfect,
Mm,
and it's perfect. All of it is perfect. And I never understood why they didn't fight when Tibet was being brutalized and massacred. And now I understand why. And I can't say that would happen for me.
no.
I mean,
Right.
if
Right.
somebody showed up to try and mess with my kid, old
Yeah.
ego Mike would come back out again. The Hulk version would appear probably, and it would not be pretty.
Mm,
But I understand it, and I'd like to think that I might be able to choose the higher path. But I didn't understand the higher path before, and now I've had to choose it. When she died, I had 2 weeks where I never understood why people wouldn't want to live.
mm,
Why would you not want to live? Life is freaking amazing.
mm, mm,
But when she died, I had about 2 weeks where I questioned, even though I have my beautiful daughter, I questioned why
mm.
why bother? I would never take my own life,
Right.
but I still questioned. I had that existential crisis moment where I'm like,
Yeah.
why? What's it worth? Who cares?
Right. Right.
And
Mm,
I think that was the impetus for the true indoctrination of understanding
mm,
who cares anyway, right? What's
yeah.
the difference in the distinction? You get to choose how you're spending your life. And as I held my wife's hand and she died, I thought about all of the work that she had done to accumulate, to be a good person, to
Mm,
feel seen and valued. I thought about what took her life, and I realized none of that shit actually matters at all. Not even a little bit.
I know.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
you want to sit down and go, I showed the world how much I love them.
Yeah.
And I did it through my actions and my words and my presence. Presence matters,
Yeah.
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 And that's what I'm striving for right now, is just to be fully present in love,
Mm. Yeah, brother.
Yeah.
Amen. I mean, we could honestly just kind of wrap this message with that and put a bow on it. Presence matters. I can't think of anything more important in life. So I want to thank Mike, my brother, for sharing your heart, your journey, your lessons. And if you got something out of today with Mike, he's coming back, because I edited this down from a very long conversation. The next piece that he'll share with us is a powerful tool he's developed, an exercise, that'll help you understand where you are on your journey of consciousness. It is so powerful. I can't wait for you to experience it. So that's next time with Mike, which should be out in a couple of weeks. Thanks for being here. If you're not fully here yet, hit subscribe so you don't miss anything. We're going to keep expanding this conversation and have lots more tools, insights, and realness along the way. So remember to be cause in a positive way in your life, and that is always a cause that comes from love. So we love you. We'll see you next time, and thanks for being here.